Hello, Aubrey. How's it going today?
I'm excellent. How are you, Lindsay?
Good to see you on the podcast. And today's episode is on video. Guys, go check out our YouTube channel if you're not a subscriber over there. Aubrey, I have a question for you to start off today.
All right, let's hear it.
So what's something new that you're into lately? What are you getting
Mm.
into these days? What's something new?
Okay, I got really into figuring out how to self-publish. This has become a lot easier lately, right? Companies like Amazon are
Yeah.
making it so that if you write a book, you can skip this whole publishing step of finding an agent, finding a publisher if
Wow.
you either don't want it, because that can be such a long, difficult process.
For
Sometimes you want to skip
sure.
it. And I just wrote this little book with game instructions. People are always asking me, remind me how to play that game. So I wrote the instructions for a bunch of games, and I did not want to go through the hassle and the headache of finding an agent and getting it published in the sort of the traditional route. So
Right.
I looked into how to self-publish, and I've been really into figuring out all the ins and outs of that and getting my book available. It's been fun.
That is so cool, Aubrey. You are like the game authority, right?
Right?
And this is all just game knowledge that you've had in your head and you've put it into a book, and now it's going to be out in the world for anyone to get it. I love it. How does it feel to kind of complete a project like that? It's
It
amazing, right?
really does. It really does feel good because you guys may know this about me. I've probably shared about this before, but I often will start projects, get really excited about it,
Yeah.
and then get busy, get a little less excited. It's easy to just put it on the back burner. It's like
Sure.
an idiom we say for like just ignoring it for a while and not proactively. And so it does feel really good to complete a task. I'm guessing our listeners feel that too. All of us have had that feeling of like finally actually completing something. It feels so good.
I
Such a
love it.
feeling of accomplishment.
I love it that you threw in that bonus for our listeners. Put it on the back burner. What does that mean? One more time, Aubrey, just so our listeners know before we get into today's
Yeah.
topic.
So
Back
imagine the
burner.
visual of a stovetop where
Yeah.
you have the 4 sort of circles on a stovetop are the burners, is how
Yeah.
we will say them, and the things that are more sort of priority or important are on those front burners, and then
Right.
maybe if something can be just simmering, right, then you
Right.
put it on a back burner, and we use that idiomatically to talk about the priorities of other tasks, things that we're doing. We use this a ton in business English too, to talk about a project that we're going to give less importance, we're going to put it on the back burner.
I love it. I love it. Let's get into today's topic then, Aubrey. What are we talking about? At the beginning of the episode, I asked you, what's something new that you're into these days? So it seems like we're working on this word into, or give us a little more
Yes.
information about today. Yeah.
Exactly right. We use that word into to talk about what we're interested in, something that we maybe are a little bit fascinated by, something new. But
Yep.
we also use it just to talk about the location of something, something that's moving into something else. And this can be so confusing for people learning a language to know whether to use in or into and on or onto. We received a
Yes.
question about this, and we want to really dive into this to make sure you guys are using the right one because this is a mistake that does sound strange to native speakers. They always know which one to use, and there's always one that
Right.
sounds right.
Right. Okay. So today we're going to help our listeners understand whether to say in or into or on or onto. Is that right? Just so I
Yes.
understand exactly what we're going to get our listeners today.
Right,
Perfect. Okay.
exactly, guys. We're doing
Love it.
kind of the little deep dive, sort of a little bit of grammar, lots of example sentences, so you'll have a really
Ooh.
good idea of why, which one to use and why.
I love it. I love it that we're delving in more to grammar these days on All Ears English because I think our listeners want this and you guys are ready for this. You know what I mean? To really
Absolutely.
maximize that level, Aubrey, for our listeners to move to that 99% fluency, we need these final grammar pieces. So where do we start
Exactly.
today? Yeah.
Exactly, right? We so many of the questions we get are about these sort of finite grammar points. So, just
Yes.
to review, we received this question from a listener, Arlene, and in episode 1921, we answered the first part of her question about the prepositions on, in, and at for
Yes.
place. So,
Okay.
go back and check that one out if you missed it. So useful, so helpful. But she also asked about onto and into, and we promised that in an upcoming episode we would dive into those because it's a sort of separate ball game. And so
Right.
we're doing that today. We're getting into onto and into how you use them, examples to straighten this all out.
On to and into. So we keep our promises to our listeners. Guys, send us your questions. Send your question to Aubrey at allearsenglish.com. Aubrey, you're soliciting questions, right? Why not?
Absolutely.
Why
Yes.
not? Send your questions in and let us know what you want to learn about on this podcast. Especially, Aubrey, we like specific questions, don't we?
Yes, exactly, right? In fact, this question was so great from Arlene because she's asking about these specific things. Sometimes we do have to break it into 2 episodes because there's
Yeah.
so much there when you really get into the little finite details, but the more specific the better, so that we get your examples of where you've heard something or been confused by something. That makes such an interesting, rich episode.
You got it. All right, let's get into it. Where do we start today? Guide us through this, Aubrey. What should we do?
Okay, so let's first just kind of clarify when it comes to onto and into, these are prepositions of action.
Okay.
Something happens, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to with on and in, the action has already happened and we're just
Uh,
describing location, right? So
okay.
we'll separate these out. We'll first talk about into and onto, and we'll give you different examples of why you would need to use into instead of in.
Okay, but the key idea here, I love that we're starting right there. It's that
Mhm.
onto and into, when we add that to, it's about action, movement. Something is moving from one place to the next. Is that right? Is that the
Yeah.
most important thing to know right now? Love it.
Exactly,
Okay.
right? And we hear mistakes about these, with these all the time, where a language learner will have a tendency to maybe just use in all the time because they're not
Right.
sure when to use into. It's a very common mistake. So
Yes.
we're going to share details to really clarify this. So let's first talk about into, right?
Okay.
This
Yeah.
preposition into, it's used to describe movement or action that results in something
Mhm.
being enclosed or surrounded by something else, right?
Ooh,
So
okay.
let's
Sounds
get into some
technical.
examples to like really clarify what does that mean?
Yeah. Okay, so for example, I jumped into the pool, right? And I know you have a pool at your house, right, Aubrey? So your kids are always at the pool. You guys are always jumping into the pool in the summertime, Arizona
Yes.
weather,
So
right? So
many
this is
Arizonan homes almost have to have a pool because it's just so hot all summer long. It's almost a given. So lots and lots of homes have pools. I know elsewhere in the world that's not the case. I grew up in Idaho. Nobody had a swimming
no,
pool, but
no, no,
here we
no.
often do. Yes.
Sure, it's just so hot. So when you go into a pool, you're enclosed by that pool. So that follows that
Exactly.
rule, doesn't it?
Right. So there's an action of jumping into the pool and then
Mhm.
being enclosed by it. And the mistake we'll often hear is someone say, I jumped in the pool. Now, this has a different meaning, right? This
Mm.
would mean that you're already in the pool and you start jumping, right? I jumped in the pool. You're
Right.
already there. The
Right.
into is the action of getting inside the pool.
But do you think that native speakers still just make that mistake and they know the
Sometimes.
difference, but they
It's
still
definitely a
say it?
geographic like, I think in
Oh,
some
okay.
regions, you'll hear this
Mhm.
maybe more often, but in some regions where it's very, not common to make this mistake, it does sound a little glaring. So, as always, guys,
Interesting.
connection before right? That it's all about the
Connection,
connection
not
before
perfection.
worrying about perfection, right? You guys hear that from us a lot, and this is the case here as well.
Yeah,
Do not let this keep you from having a fun conversation about going swimming, but it's good to know, like, why? Why do
yeah,
there's a reason Arlene sent this question. Why do we
right.
choose one over the other? It's good to know.
And it's a good point. I mean, if you say, "I jumped in the pool," that means you're already in the pool and you're jumping up and down in the water, right? So
Right.
it actually is a different meaning. So that's the key
Exactly. There
point,
can be it
right?
can cause confusion, right? If we
Yeah,
use the wrong one, we might maybe they'll be able to figure it out from context. If they're there,
sure.
they know what's happening. But if not, there could be confusion.
Yes, I love it. Okay, what else do we have any other examples here for
Yeah,
into?
let's do a couple more, right? So, for
Okay.
example, he fell into bed. I love this expression. If we are super tired at the end of the day, we won't
Yeah,
necessarily say like, "I'm gonna go get into bed." We might say, "I fell into bed," meaning, "Oh, I was
right.
exhausted. I was so tired that I just fell right into bed."
Right, and then if we were just to play around with the other way, if we said "fell in bed," that wouldn't make a ton of sense, or it might mean, like, I'm already in my bed and I fell out of my bed,
And
or
then I
it might be
fell,
it's
right?
weird, it just
Right, we
doesn't
just
quite
wouldn't
work.
say it that way because we use
Mhm,
into to describe that action of getting
exactly.
into bed, right?
I love
And
it,
same
so
with just
clear.
at night, we're like, "I'm gonna go get into bed." You
Yes,
need that into for the action of getting into bed. It will
entering.
sound really strange or wrong to a lot of native speakers if you just said, "I'm gonna get in bed."
Yeah, that's pretty clear. I hope that that's clear for our listeners. Guys, send us your follow-up questions if that piece is not clear, but I think it's all about entering an
Mhm.
enclosed space. It's all about
Yeah.
action, entrance into something,
Yeah,
right?
and one more example that I feel like really clarifies this, if you are talking about entering a room, you
Yep.
would say like, "She walked into the office."
Okay.
If you say, "She walked in the office," that very much means you're already there, and then you start walking around. Maybe you're talking on the phone and you're walking in the office, right?
Right.
But we would say into if you're outside, and then the action of entering a space. She walked
Yeah.
into the office.
And again, I will say, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold
Oh,
here.
no problem.
Yeah, that I will sometimes say I walked in the office, right? But, technically it does mean you're already in the office and you're walking around, right? It doesn't technically mean entering the office. So on my side of the country or part of the I don't know, native speaking
Mhm.
world, I will make that mistake and I don't really think about it, but if we want to be totally grammatically precise, guys, use the into when you're talking about entering a space,
Yeah,
okay?
to avoid confusion, I think that's really good to point out though, Lindsay, that you will hear native speakers use both sometimes, and maybe there's confusion or not. We can figure it out from context, but
Right.
because of that, you should not be stressed about making mistakes with this. It's
Yeah.
good to know why we would choose one or the other, but definitely don't stress about this. Definitely
Yeah.
have the conversation without thinking, oh no, which one should I say?
Right. I mean, never let, that perfection come in the way of
Totally.
connection. As we always say
Totally.
on this show, right? Don't get paralyzed trying to think, is it to, is it into, is it in? No, connect, make eye contact, build the relationship with the person you're talking to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes. Good. What else, Aubrey?
All right, let's dive into onto. So the preposition onto, similarly, it's used to express that movement of something from one position to another, right?
Okay.
So, for example, imagine someone is about to perform on a stage. We
Okay.
would say, she walked onto the stage. She's not
Mm-hmm.
there yet. It's the action of walking
Yes.
onto the stage. And
Good.
then if we say she walked on the stage, we're imagining she's already there. Now she's walking around as part of
Walking
her
around
role,
on the
right? So it's the
stage, right?
action of changing location, changing
Changing
position.
entering a space action. I love it.
Mhm.
Or he climbed onto the roof, meaning he was on the ladder, got onto, entered the roof, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And if we were going to talk about an action you take when you're already on the roof, we might
Mhm.
say he walked on the roof, right? We wouldn't
Right.
really say he climbed on the roof unless you have to like climb even higher somehow. Like there are multiple stories, right?
My
Because that
gosh.
means you're changing position.
Oh, it's so crazy. Sometimes when I'm walking around my city, I'll see construction people up there on the roof and I think, "Oh my god, that looks terrifying." I would
Right.
never I
I'm a hard pass for getting up on
No,
any
hard
roofs.
pass. Hard pass. No, thank you.
Okay, I love this third example. I feel like this clarifies it the most to talk about getting onto a bed or if like jumping on a bed, right? So
Yeah.
maybe the cat jumped onto the bed. That's very
Mhm.
clearly like it was on the floor. It wasn't on the bed. It jumped onto the bed.
On
It changed
2.
location. But if
Okay.
you say the cat jumped on the bed,
Mhm.
it's a very different meaning. It's already on the bed and it's starting to jump on the bed. We're
Okay.
worried about it cutting up the blanket, right?
Okay.
So you
Yeah,
can
good.
see how it does change the meaning sometimes.
Yeah, I love it. It does change the meaning, and again, I think I break these rules all the time.
Very
But
possible. It depends
we
on where we
know
live, right?
but we know what is the true rule and what it actually means, right? It's okay to break the rules if you know you're breaking it and you know that people are understanding what you're saying, guys,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
All right, Aubrey, should we make this really clear in a role play for our listeners?
Yes, let's do it. We'll do a role play. You and I are coworkers at a bakery in this role play. I would love that. I would love
Ooh.
for you and I
Oh
to work at a
my
bakery together. That
gosh.
sounds
I would
fun.
just eat everything. I would
That's true. I would too. We wouldn't be able
All
to
right.
resist all of the
Nothing would be
pastries
available
and
for
sweets.
sale. We would go in at 3 AM, start baking, and then eat everything, and then 5 AM it opens, there's nothing to sell.
Right. Like we were testing everything. So
Right.
true.
Here we go. Can you put all those scones into the oven?
Absolutely. Someone just came into the kitchen, so let me see what they need and then I'll get on that.
Perfect. I think it's Jane. She said she saw a rat climbing onto the roof this morning. Ooh, that's not good. You don't want a
I
rat
know,
around a
right? No business
bakery.
wants rats.
No. No, 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 no,
Though
no.
depending on where the business it's just so common in New York City, I think, they're just rats are everywhere. It just comes with the territory.
I wonder why it is that whenever I think about rats, the first thing I think of is New York City. It's so sad.
It's because we did you see that? I would see them in New York, so I
Yeah.
definitely assume but honestly, we have roof rats here in Arizona. They,
Roof
like, live in
rats.
people's roofs, and so we have traps in the backyard, and we'll catch them
Wow.
sometimes. So it's certainly not just an inner city thing, like, here we are in the suburbs, and there are definitely there are a few,
Interesting.
like, wild cats, feral cats, that everyone
Ooh.
just lets roam the neighborhood because it keeps the
Oh,
rat
you need the
population down.
cats,
Yes.
you need the cats. Well, I know in New York, they had a real problem with the pandemic, with the outdoor dining. Rats started to
Mm,
really take over, and I think the new mayor is declaring war on the rats
interesting.
and trying to do something about it, but I think the rat situation has gotten even worse in New York,
Yeah, I can
since
see that.
2019.
Nobody
Yeah.
wants that. No one wants to see a rat prancing around while they're eating at an outdoor like a fancy outdoor patio.
Exactly, exactly. Oh my gosh, I hope they get that under control for sure.
Yes.
Okay, let's break it down, Aubrey. What did we do first here?
Yeah,
What did I
the first
say?
one you used was saying, "Can you put those scones into the oven?"
Right.
I think this is the example where you're saying, I would potentially say or hear, "Can you put those scones in the oven?" Sure, right?
Yes.
Even though grammatically we're thinking, "Okay, into is changing position from one location to another," you will hear natives say, "Can you put that in the oven?" And it
Right.
depends sort of on where they're from, how off that sounds to someone.
Right, and the verb too, because put is just naturally an entering verb. It's an action
Right,
verb,
good point.
right?
When you already have put, we kind of know that you're
Of
transferring location, so
course.
you almost don't need
Yeah,
into.
exactly. So we have a little bit of flexibility there, guys. And then you said, absolutely. Someone just came into the kitchen. So let me see what they need, and then I'll get on that. So someone just came into the kitchen, meaning they entered the kitchen, right, Aubrey?
Exactly, right? And this would I feel like this would sound really wrong to me for someone to be like, "Someone came in the kitchen." I don't know,
Yeah,
it's something about the entering a
interesting.
space and a closed space like that. It
Okay.
definitely sounds more correct to me for to hear into, came into the kitchen,
I like it. Well, let's learn it the right way. Let's learn it the
right?
right way and do it right. So good. Okay, what's the last one then?
And then the last one, we said we saw a rat climbing onto the
Onto the roof.
roof. Yeah,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Mhm.
down on the ground and you see it climbing up the wall onto the roof. So because
Right.
it's changing position, changing location, we use into or
Entering the
onto.
roof. Exactly. It's not that it's already there and it's climbing on the roof. It's moving from being down to being on the roof. So we're entering, we're
Exactly.
changing location. So that's the key. So there's times when you can break the rule. I will admit that I break this rule all the time. But at least we know when we're breaking it, guys, and we want to make sure we're clear. It's all about clarity, right?
Yes, absolutely right. And I really love this focus on connection, not perfection here. And
Yeah,
this, I think it's so smart to highlight when it really is not going to hurt you, right? This is
you
the
got
kind of
it.
thing that only in the most high stakes situations are we really going to need to worry about these finite details.
Yeah.
Every other conversation, do not stress about it. Just focus on that connection, right?
That's it, Aubrey. I love it. So good. Guys, hit follow on the All Ears English podcast. If you love this show, we publish 4 days a week. So hit follow so you don't miss a single episode. Aubrey, thanks for hanging with me today.
Awesome. See you next time.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.